Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Mission Employable podcast. I'm Ben Oldak. Kathy Leggett is out today traveling to Denver for work, and I'm not jealous at all. It's a great city. If you haven't been, check out Denver. It's fun. That being said, I'm still excited because we have a great show for everybody today. Krista Tedrow and Oliver Hernandez Norris are here. Krista is the Director of Development for the South Central Iowa Local Workforce Board. Oliver is a sophomore at Ottumwa High School, also a member of the Youth Workforce Council in South Central Iowa. I think I got all that.
You did.
Am I
Perfect,
good?
Ben.
Perfect. Excellent. Well, welcome to the show. We're happy to have you here.
Well, thanks. Yeah, we're excited to come talk to you about some of the work we've been doing with our youth and really uplifting youth voice. So thanks for inviting us.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're here to fulfill dreams because Oliver, I hear, has always wanted to be on a podcast.
I'm thrilled.
Well, we're excited to have you. So first of all, kind of give us a little bit of your background and what you guys are all about. Krista, we'll start with you.
Sure. So we, in workforce development at a regional level, work with our state. And so a lot of what we've been doing as a workforce board has been focused on youth and how are we supporting youth and ensuring that, you know, we have that next generation of Iowa talent, specifically in rural communities, right? Because we see this brain drain and are beginning to wonder, you know, why are youth not staying? And we see high rates of disconnection from education, employment, or community. So why we are here today is we applied to be a part of the Youth Systems Building Academy, which was a Department of Labor initiative to really focus on exactly that, getting youth connected and seeing how we can build out a workforce for the future. And so that's kind of how we got started. And of course, we can't do things without youth. So,
well, I think that I'm basically here because I like, as a youth who gets to experience hanging out with underserved youth or talking about youth wanting to get jobs or not feeling like they love their community. It's really heartbreaking. And to like be able to be on the front lines and get to have that voice for my fellow friends and youth that I know and get to work with adults in stuff that I'm really interested in is just really cool. So I think that's my motive.
Yeah, and that's kind of what encouraged you to get on the council then?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, kind of tell us how you guys got involved with the Youth Systems Building Academy.
Sure. So our workforce board has a youth committee, and the youth committee said, you know, we really want to make sure that youth are connected. We see a lot of different systems doing a lot of different things, all to support youth, and our role is to be a neutral convener, to bring those parties together, those partners together, and say, what can we do? We recognize that we have a lot of youth that are falling through the cracks. And so we said we want to be, you know, the most innovative and collaborative board in the nation, and we also want to make sure that our youth are represented and represented well. So with that, I was tasked with basically saying, okay, what are we going to do and how are we going to get this done? So we partnered with our city of Ottumwa. We partnered with a local foundation. We partnered with a church. We partnered with DHS. We partnered with Iowa State University, the community college, several different spaces that people are serving youth, and came together to say, how do we do this in a more aligned way? Because we're each touching or a part of our community and serving. So Department of Labor then said, hey, we're all going to get you in a room. So we convened in D.C. twice. At our first convening, we had opportunity to have technical assistance and kind of just guide the group because everybody's busy doing stuff. So it was like, hey, if we can be intentional about getting together to create some strategies, that'd be great. The next time we came, we had 3 youth with us. So really the academy was about saying, how do we empower communities and how do we give them the tools and the resources they need and create some of those levers of change and really support them. So with that, we were able to come up with kind of a strategy of what we wanted to do to move forward. I've talked a ton, so I would love to hear Oliver's experience.
Yeah, well, that kind of brings me to my next question, right? Is that this youth academy wasn't just Iowa, right? We had 9 communities from 7 different states represented in New York, West Virginia, Alaska, Louisiana, Colorado, Illinois, and of course here in Iowa. So, Oliver, what do you think Iowa brought to the table in terms of valuable insight to youth employment?
I think that we have a really good grasp on education, and it felt like some of the other states were really like really helpful with that because we kind of brought that to the table. Obviously, like some of the other states had more strengths than we did, and I felt like we had also the youth that we brought along, including me, were very like determined. And when we first our first kind of couple meetings, it almost just felt like we were kind of just there to kind of hang out. And by like the third meeting, we kind of spoke up and we're like, guys, youth, remember the people that you have here are youth. Like, we're here to give our input and what we think is wrong and right, like you guys are. So I felt like we were just determined people who we just really want to change, and I think that was our big strength.
And were there youth from other communities that were there?
Yeah, every state that came brought like probably 2 or 3 youth. So
how cool is that for you to see? Not just, I mean, because you've been around, people your own age working from in Iowa, but how cool is it to see other folks from other states with kind of the same passions and drive that you guys have?
It was really motivating to see that because it just it gave me so much hope that like kids my age and even like older were kind of just so passionate about the same things that I was, and it was really like relatable to be there because everyone was like, yeah, we think it's kind of messed up too. So it was good that we all were kind of hands-on and devoted.
Yeah. So kind of branching off of that, I want to pick your brain on what do you think is the biggest need for youth employment right now?
I think that it needs to be way more accessible.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like opportunities aren't presented, and I feel like a lot of employers are like saying that they're youth friendly, but they're not actively showing that or saying that, hey, we apply youth, and also giving those youth opportunities that's not like working at somewhere that pays like $9 an hour. Like I think youth that are really determined, and even youth that aren't, should have opportunities to branch out and do what they want to do.
Was there anything that other states were doing actively that you thought Iowa could potentially bring to the table? Because I know in Iowa we do a lot of stuff with registered apprenticeships and summer youth internship programs with companies, and that's something that we're really strong in. But I'm curious if there was anything that you saw from other states that you thought we could apply here.
Mm-hmm. I feel like other states were really good at listening to their youth. Like the leaders that the other youth had with them were like really devoted. Not saying you guys aren't, but it was like, I feel like a lot of the other communities like were really tuning in on them, and like we're like really picky about what they want, like what they needed and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I think, and I'm gonna kind of backtrack a little bit because one of the things that we brought to the table with Iowa really was this deep understanding, because there was different levels there. So some state agencies represented and then some local agencies. Ashley Sinwell with Iowa Workforce Development was able to attend our first session. And so we were the only state there that brought a faith-based community. We were the only state there or the only community there that was at the local level that brought a state person with us. And so when we think about how change occurs, it doesn't just happen at the ground level. It doesn't just happen at the state level. It takes all levels of partnership, right? So I think Iowa brought a good representation of what local and state collaboration looks like.
Yeah.
And it's so necessary for that systematic change. The other thing that we brought, I believe, is our youth. By day 3, basically, all the adults had been talking, and our youth hadn't really been saying anything. So they said, Tedrow, you're just going to come to this room at this time, and we're going to make up what we need to do, and we're going to present that to the adults or the other people there tomorrow, and we're going to get it done. So I think that Iowa also brought youth that, like Oliver said, were determined and knew they would be listened to and knew they would be heard, and created that space kind of for themselves.
Yeah.
So that's not something that I saw really represented in the other states, because you guys were the ones that presented when we were telling like Department of Labor officials what we wanted to do and how we outlined it. That was you all, not adults.
Like we got on the stage and we were like all making points and making these big, and we were talking. It was just like I felt the same. I agree.
Yeah, I think it's important that we have people who are ready to actively listen to youth.
And I think that's something else that Department of Labor representatives, they stated, we heard some uncomfortable truths.
Mm-hmm.
And so our government is for the people, should be designed for the people, to serve the people. And if we're not listening to the people, even when those truths are uncomfortable, are we really serving? And so I think what our young people brought was what was determined as uncomfortable truths, but they also said, we are here to be a part of the solution. So we are here. We're glad to be engaged, but it was really awkward for them to be in a space with all of these adults and like political figures
Sure.
and you know, like lots of power, right?
Yeah.
You guys kind of answer my questions in terms of, why do you think it's important to have like grassroots involvement in this space, right? Like for the, for the adult leaders to hear about. But I want to also kind of ask you, and maybe Oliver specifically, why do you think it's important for youth to have grassroots involvement for the sake of other youth? You know what I mean? Why is it important for other kids to see kids doing this kind of work?
Mm-hmm. When you're a youth and you maybe don't read the news, which is very common, or you don't really understand what's happening at a business level or like a state level because you cannot get access to it, it is so great to see, and it's so refreshing to see like people your age, people that you know and you talk to, just helping you and getting out there and representing you. Because I'm not like, the reason that we do this is not for ourselves, it's for everyone. And like it's just so important to see the representation. Like just like if you're watching a movie, it's important to see people that look like you or talk like you. It's so important to see your fellow people helping you and helping others.
Yeah. And do you think that makes them more likely to pay attention, to trust the process, like that kind of thing?
Absolutely. I think it could even help them, get into government or believe in themselves that they can do big things too.
Yeah.
And that's something I think I heard you all after the trip really talking about, like, oh my gosh, we toured the White House today. Yeah. Oh my goodness, we met with Congressman Nunn and he took us on a tour personally. And oh my goodness, I met with the Secretary of Labor at the federal level. So just those experiences where we are putting youth in positions of power. And in the first session when we convened, it didn't have youth. It's not my job to be their voice. They have their own voice. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. My job is to make sure that we have a platform so I can get out of the way and that our youth can exercise their power and that voice. And so I think that's, I know back to the why of it, but when our youth are active co-designers and co-creators of what the future of work looks like and what the future of education looks like, it's important because they are the future of work and education.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So tell me a little bit about the results from this academy. What were kind of the takeaways that you guys had, and how are you going to implement them going forward?
Well, from the academy, we kind of developed the 3 youth that went. We kind of developed a group, and we said, let's assess our biggest things and what we feel like we need to change. And going to DC kind of empowered us. Like it almost helped us realize what we needed. It was before that, it was just kind of, we see these problems and we know we need to do something about it, but how? And the minute that we were able to come together and see what powers we had and what we felt was the struggle, it was just so important.
That's where that becomes the government serving the people is, I'm going to tell you what we need, and then how are we going to do it? And I just touched somebody there. But our youth came up and said, we want to have a youth council.
Yeah.
So we'll start it. The 3 of us will become that youth council.
For the state of Iowa.
For our region.
For your region.
Yep. So with that, I am advocating there is a youth council meeting for the State Workforce Board, and we will hopefully have youth on that soon. Eventually,
yes.
we're coming. And then we also said that you all wanted to hire a youth engagement coordinator because all of us were so busy. We were executives that were there sitting at those tables, and they realized, basically, you guys aren't going to be able to do this. You're so busy already, right? So our youth drafted the job description. They were part of the hiring process. They were part of designing the scoring, rubric, really saying, if we're going to have somebody work for us, we want to tell you what it should look like.
For sure.
So that I thought was really cool.
So cool. Yeah.
I don't know what other thoughts you have on.
I think that we also, we've looked at other communities in Iowa, and we've kind of branched off them and seen, well, what can we do for our region to make it better? So can I talk about the...
You can talk about
Okay.
Yeah.
We're in the process of helping our community make a... is it city council board or is
Yep.
it... Okay.
The city of Ottumwa passed a code to have a youth council in the city.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys were part of drafting that and creating that space.
Mm-hmm. And it's just so cool. It's so cool.
Tell me about the study with ISU, because I'd heard that you guys are partnering with Iowa State University to create like a first in the nation type survey. Could you talk about that a little bit?
You want me to do that? You want to do it?
You can start it.
Okay. So with all of the different data, I'm a huge free the data. It can be hard, right? Because we have all these different requirements that say, oh, hey, FERPA says you can't have that, and da-da-da-da. And so it's like, okay, we have youth interacting with the juvenile justice system. Sorry, I talk with my hands. But we have youth interacting with the juvenile justice system. We have youth interacting with the education system. We have youth interacting with the workforce system. So really saying, okay, where are our youth impacted by these systems? Who are they interacting with? And how best do we serve them so they're not falling through cracks? And we realized, we might have data, we're not combining it or putting it together. And even with the quantitative data, the numbers, we don't have a narrative.
Sure.
We haven't asked the why our youth are disconnected or why are you falling through the cracks? What is happening so we can be preventative? And so when we were at the Department of Labor in D.C., I had asked for the data set. Say, oh, cool, you're giving us some feedback on data. So what specifically should I be asking for when I go to the education system? What specifically should I be asking for? And nobody could really tell us. So we said we want to make sure we talk to our young people to have a narrative to understand the why in addition to the numbers. And so Iowa State University is partnering with us to design that study, and our youth said, basically, we want to learn how to do that qualitative research, the narrative, because frankly, Oliver will talk to me when we've built some trust, but we know that our youth will be able to talk to one another and really get that. So I think why is it important for you guys? What was kind of your...
We know that... I feel like we've always talked about these youth don't do anything, or they're lazy, or they can't build themselves anything. But I don't feel like we've done anything to help that out. And so this data is just so important because it's really interesting to see how many youth are impacted by not being involved in anything and what's the reasons why. And it's almost like I take it to heart. It's just so impactful to see why aren't they involved, and how can we get them involved,
Yeah, so essentially the survey is going to be able to give you a better idea of kind of the holes and the gaps and the reasons why, and then the youth council can work on creating solutions for those problems.
That's
Absolutely.
correct. And ISU would like to be able to replicate that in all their counties through their extension office. So that gives Iowa more of an opportunity, and communities at a local level and even at a state level more opportunity to say, where are we at and how can we address these challenges. And it's specifically important for rural because a lot of times rural doesn't have access to data because we're so small that the sample size isn't big enough.
Sure.
So there's just been a lot of challenges to work through, but we've had such support from our local representatives and even the Iowa State University president herself. And so it's been really cool to see the support when our youth said this is what we think we need, and seeing our leaders in state levels and executive levels respond and say we're here for it, and we don't care if it's hard because we're Iowans and we can work hard and we will make it happen. So
yeah, it's so cool to see that, sometimes it can feel almost impossible to find solutions or the mechanisms to make things work, but they are there. And I think you guys got a great firsthand experience in seeing that if there's a problem, there's usually a way to solve it if you know the right places to go and look for it, right?
And that's one of the things one of my favorite quotes is the people closest to the problem are farthest from the power, but they also are closest to the solution, right? So
Sure. Yeah.
we know that our youth, if we listen, they have solutions and they have ideas. How do we ensure that we can get that power and accessibility, like Oliver was talking about, so that we can empower them to do that? And one other cool thing that we're doing is you guys just reviewed and we're co-designing a youth community co-designer pre-apprenticeship. So our youth said, wait a second, it's kind of cool what you do, Krista. It's kind of cool what you do, Kara. You could be a city council person and work for DHS. It's kind of cool what you do, Lindsay, the Job Corps director. So our youth really said, we didn't even know. We know there's hospital jobs, there's jobs in the health industry, right?
Yeah, totally. No, that's something huge that we're trying to work on, kind of getting that out, is the fact that so many different career fields can be apprenticeable. Obviously we have the trades. We've got, healthcare, we've got IT apprenticeships all over the state. But the fact that we can have state government, you can do all kinds of type of apprenticeship programs. I mean, I come from a journalism background. I think it would be very easy to make a journalism apprenticeship, if people wanted to go that route. That's really cool that you guys are being able to kind of put that into practice.
Yeah, and I think to your point, there's so many different opportunities, and I think that sometimes government specifically, and I appreciate our government, I'm part of that system.
Yeah.
At times, though, it's slow, right,
Totally.
to move.
Totally.
And so what we were really saying is, okay, government, you are the largest industry. You yourself are an industry. So what are we doing to ensure that we have a talent pipeline? We've got great benefits in government, right? We do. There's so many positives and pros, and if we can get folks who are the future into these roles, then our government begins to look like the people it serves. It begins to respond to the needs of the people that we're serving. So
excellent.
Yeah.
Well, we are close to being on our time here, so I'll wrap up with this question. What is 2024 going to look like for this project going forward over the next 365?
So we really hope to get that city council we just hope to get it really on track, and we hope to see that those benefits in our community and get amplified. Let's think about that. What else?
Launching our pre-apprenticeship.
Yep.
So that's supposed to launch in January. Our youth hired the Authentic Youth Engagement Coordinator, so getting that role up and going. And then we have other communities that have already reached out and want to have something similar done. So our youth are hoping they get paid for the work that they do, so that's important as
Big
they
time.
consult and design. And then their hope is to kind of establish their own consultancy so they can go and help make sure that this work gets done. And they'll be designing apprenticeships, the programs themselves, by the work that they do through the pre-apprenticeship, so that hopefully they can design their own job description and they actually understand how that works and the benefits to it. Yeah. So
we are also coming up with a class and a program that we can teach in the school that gives some background on just how to write a check and how to maybe even have a job in government, and giving people a chance to actually learn and thrive about those things.
Yeah. Kids are all right, huh?
Pretty awesome. Pretty awesome.
I agree.
Guys, thank you so much for stopping by the podcast. Krista, Oliver, really thank you again. Keep up the good work. I mean, it's really cool and inspiring to see what you guys are able to do.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.